any citizens' comments at this time? Please come up to the podium. State your name. Anyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Is this enough? Yes. Mayor, council, fellow citizens, I'm Fred Gonzalez and I live in Floresville. Those who know me know how strongly I feel about folks trying to represent our citizens when they don't live in Floresville. I strongly believe in the basic principle of requiring that those who want to be elected as our representatives must come from among us. That is, they have to be residents of Floresville. This is one of the key factors in self-government. I just don't believe that having a house and address in Floresville satisfies this requirement. Your primary residence, where you actually live in every sense of the word, must be in Floresville. Saying that your intent is to live here, as some would have you believe, is making a mockery of the requirement. Thus, I strongly believe that all of us true citizens should be offended by this type of action. We should all take a stand against it. Currently, the voters are subjected to rigid screening. Those representing those voters should not merit any less screening. There needs to be a system where verifiable proof of citizenship can be obtained at the entry point, i.e. when applying. Thus, the testing from here should be to explore and find out what agency or agencies can help in establishing such a system at the local level or where feasible. A good system of screening would eliminate the type of distractions we continually face from those who would gain the current system. Thank you for your attention and time.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Anyone else? Any other citizens' comments? If there are none, we'll go on to the public hearing. Second public hearing on the proposed 2017 property tax rate for the city of Floresville.
Good evening, council, mayor. I'm here to present and speak about tax rate, second public hearing. As I have previously commented, the recommended tax rate by the staff is the 0.3625, which is the rollback rate. The effective tax rate is 0.3409. And we had previously, just for the sake of budget, had proposed an increase of 0.3960, so that way the city could meet their M&O budget. This rollback rate will give us enough money to pay the city debt, but it will have a shortfall of $95,000 to the M&O for M&O means maintenance and operations of the city. Council can always adopt the higher rate that will give us the same revenue from prior year. My recommendation is not to do that because it will trigger a rollback election, and instead of helping us, it will hurt the city more because of the expenses. And then when you do a rollback election, the only rate that is going to be affected is the M&O, not the debt. I would like to also point out that, do you all have this sheet? Okay. Where it says the total rate comparison from fiscal year 15-16 versus 16-17. On the rollback rate, the increase is 4 cents for every $100 of value, home value. The effective tax rate is 2 cents. And the proposed rate, previously proposed, it will be 7 cents. So I just wanted to point that out. On the bottom, it gives you the M&O and INS tax levy for every 100,000 With the rollback rate, it will be an increase of $363 for every $100,000 home value.
Ms. Connie, excuse me, we don't have, we only have one page. We don't have that particular.
It's on the same page. It's on the bottom.
No, we don't have that.
They have the notice, the public notice.
The public notice, okay.
Yes, that's all we have.
All right. So, and then since this is the second public hearing, I had already pointed this out to the public.
Yes, we've seen that before.
Do you have any questions?
Just one, Connie. You mentioned there was a $94,000 shortfall. However, we went over the budget last time. We created a balanced budget.
Yes,
Is that correct?
that is correct.
Council, any other questions? All right.
Just to remind the council, we made some cuts in various areas and we balanced the budget.
Yes.
Okay, this concludes the,
This concludes the presentation of the public hearing of the tax rate.
thank you. All right, we'll go on to old business.
Mayor,
I'm
before
sorry.
the public hearing gets closed, the public gets a chance to
Oh, all right.
speak to it.
Anyone have a comment from the audience?
Mayor, could you speak a little bit louder? Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear.
Okay, then I'll put the mic in my mouth.
Whatever you use, it doesn't matter.
Thank you.
As long as
Can you hear that now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you for letting me know. There are no comments? Then we'll go on to old business. CNA to approve the meeting minutes for the first regular meeting on May the 12th, 2016. Any corrections?
I don't see any changes. I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
We have a motion to approve the minutes. May I have a second?
Second, Madam Mayor?
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the minutes for the first regular meeting on May the 12th, 2016, raise your right hand. All opposed? Madam Secretary?
3-0, Mayor.
3-0, motion carries. Thank you.
3-0.
302, thank you. All right, we'll go on to presentation and discussion. The city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I have a very brief report today. I apologize it was not in your packages, but a lot of it happened today and last night. The mayor and I attended on the August storm. The mayor and I attended this morning, meeting with the county and other county officials in reference to the August storm that happened on the 21st and 20th of this month. And after discussion and debate, the mayor in her infinite wisdom decided to declare it a national disaster. So I have a copy of the letter here for you. Would you mind, Councilman Kent, if I pass it to you, you can pass it down? Yeah.
A local disaster, I'm sorry.
A local disaster. So, difference to what happened in October for the tornado, the state met the threshold of $35 million. And so, the city declared it a disaster, the county declared it a disaster, the state declared a disaster, and then the federal government declared it a disaster for our tornado. In this case, county will meet the threshold of, I believe it's over $180,000 for local, but it will not meet the threshold for the state. Therefore, there will not be any assistance from FEMA as we have had previously. I've had several conversations with the council about maybe we need to think about a disaster relief organization that here for non-for-profit for residents are definitely in distress. And of course, it's all relative, so for them it's probably like the worst thing that happened, but we have some that are in low income areas. We have others that are underinsured or no insurance. And so it is definitely an issue that the council may want to look at as, this is my second disaster and there may be another one coming. So, but I do want to be able to give that to you all. It does say 7 days from the date of today, and it was declared today. And the mayor, thank you for attending that meeting. We will be looking at doing some cleanup and assisting people to get rid of the carpeting and things such as that as people are drying out and trying to move some things. Moving on to my second topic is we met again last night to talk about the 2016-2017 budget. I have some information here based on that. I tried to put in italics the difference between last night's report and tonight's report, and some additional information here that I have for you. I'll pass out. Just as a reminder, we will be looking at having another recap on Monday to look at the budget. We're looking at doing some preliminary approval so that we can see what we can do for our letter of credit. We're going to follow up letter of conditions. We're going to follow up with the USDA tomorrow when we get to have lunch with the congressman to discuss where we can move from there. And Mayor, that would be the end of my report.
All right, any questions? Council? Thank you, Ms. Turner.
Yes, I know. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this concludes our presentations. We'll go on to new business. Oh, I'm sorry, commercial sewer rates? Is that yours?
Well, I just asked Ms. Turner if she would make that presentation on sewer.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about, I'm on the budget, I'm budget bound.
Council, the reason I brought this topic up is I've been contacted by some local businessmen, especially in the downtown area. I guess it doesn't matter where the location is, but complaining about the sewer rates for small businesses.
Yes, and I apologize, Councilman. Okay. Item number 3, so it's under your tab number 3, is the ordinance that we passed, ordinance number 2015-032. Now, just remind you that where these rates came from was based after Raul Gonzalez did a rate study to say these are what your rates need to be in order to support your USDA loan of $7 million. And so we needed to get through a threshold. Now, I can remember initially that my request would be for us to step into it kind of slowly, because by the year of 2018, we have to make our first payment on this loan. But we couldn't get there fast enough. And so it's front-loaded in it. So it is quite an increase. And the lion's share of the increase is usually put on the commercial development rather than residential. Now, it is based on a flat rate for your residents, just to remind everybody. It's a flat rate for your residents, but it is a consumption use based on their consumption for commercial. Of water. Okay, so it's kind of like the more water that they use, it's a calculation that's based on their water usage. So for everyone else, for a house, it's a flat rate. And in 2016, for example, according to the ordinance, it's $26.20 a month.
I've got a question. Okay, when you're saying uses of water, that goes through our sewer line, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we've got a few businesses that make ice, that water never hits the sewer line. It's going out into ice making, and their bill is like ridiculous.
We have an ice company in town?
Well, we got a few stores that make ice and sell ice, and their usage of water that does not go through the sewer line is going packaged water. So,
Yes, but how the, only way you can calculate, because you can't, there's no meter to meter what actually goes into your sewer. So what the calculations go for is that it's based on your water usage, and therefore that's what they charge you for sewer.
I understand that, but since it's not really going through the sewer, I mean, they're making ice, they're using a lot of water. But there's a few that are getting penalized, like really, really, pretty good,
So,
because of the use. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. You're saying that the ice never hits the sewer. I understand that. However, you can't pick and choose when you come up with a rate. It has to be based on something. So it's based on the usage for commercial property, whereas in residential, it's based on a flat rate.
I understand that, but if it's a commercial, business, you usually get a flat rate on it, right?
No, you do not get a flat rate.
They
for
go on the water
commercial.
consumption.
They go on the usage for the water, yes, sir. Because those are your uses are a lot larger. But you have to remember where my house, I may only have 2 toilets to flush, and a restaurant would have 7 toilets to flush. And so they use it a lot more than you do for residential, and that's how the ordinance has always been set up. And those rates were established based on a rate study from Raul Gonzalez, and he'll be back in reference to the water. That was a requirement that USDA had. That is, you all accepted his rate study and his recommendation and did this ordinance that would actually increase the rates between 2016 to the year 2019.
So is there something that you could ask that Mr. Gonzalez about that? To see what,
Okay, it is not an individual
Oh.
issue. It has to be the entire
Across the board.
system for across the board for your distribution. This is your sewer and your water, so we talked about the other day, for your funds, is treated as an enterprise zone. So it's like a utility all by itself.
So according to the chart, Mr. Jimenez, it's 0 to 10,000 in the flat rate, right?
Yes, and then after anything above the 10,000 gallons, it goes up in like $5 increments.
yeah, but like Squeaks back here, they make ice, and her bill's way,
And selling for profit.
So if they,
It's
if
not
they
going to the
use,
sewer line.
if they use 6,000 gallons or 10,000 gallons, at that low rate, it's a flat rate of whatever the flat rate. So anything above the 10,000, then you start getting into adjusting a price. But those fees are adjusted so that we can afford to do this, and that's based on the rate that they did as a comparable study. So that's where those rates came
Just
from.
ask.
Yes, sir.
Council, any other questions?
so in January 2018, they're going up again $2. Is that the way I read it?
Yes, sir. It increments every year until the year 2019. Then they don't foresee that we have to do any increasing in 2019, other than like a typical cost of living kind of increase. We can look and see what the consumption and what it would be at that time. But what's happened was that you were so low and I was skewed that we had to balance it. Because you were not charging appropriately to maintain for M&O for your sewer. And the same thing's gonna happen with the water as well.
There's no way that to differentiate between a large consumer versus a business like Mr. Jimenez was talking about?
You'd have to create a category that's smaller than 10,000 gallons. So for instance, you create categories like from 0 to 5,000 for a smaller business, and then from 5,000 above.
And if you really,
There's no way around it.
and if you really look at it, the flat rate for residential in 2016 is $26.20. The flat rate for a small business, 10,000 gallons or less, is $52.40.
It's double.
Commercial compared to a residence, yes.
Yes, it's double.
So you'd have to create like a rate for someone under 5,000 gallons, and then separate from that. You have it categorized up to 10,000.
Would that
Well,
still be
it would be
USDA
more
required?
if they're consuming
Yeah.
like 40,000 gallons a month. It'd have to be something like, I don't know.
No, but he's talking about for a small business.
For a small
So-
business.
So if they're only using 5,000 gallons of water, and they're being charged, the same person uses 9,000 gallons, then you create a smaller bracket and create a rate for that.
Turner, is it possible to create a different level?
No, ma'am, you did a rate study, you accepted that rate study, and we've submitted this to the USDA that this is what we're going to follow.
Okay, so this conversation is not doing this anymore.
Yeah,
Okay,
we
thank
voted
you.
on this last year.
Yes. And you told them that you do this to the year 2019.
All right, anything else, council? Any other questions? Thank you, Mrs. Turner.
Thank you.
All right, under new business, CNA to approve the joint election agreement with Floresville Independent School District. Our city attorney?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council. What this is state law mandates that school districts have to have a joint election with another entity. The two entities running elections in this area are the city of Floresville and the Wilson County. And in between the two, they're handling all the elections in the area. Wilson County is already doing it for the emergency service districts and some of the other entities. And so the county said we're a little overloaded. Last year, the school district then approached us to say, could you handle this with us? The agreement was entered into last year, and the agreement that's in your packet is a modified, updated version of that. Today, we received word after 5 o'clock, similar to us, they have general election and special election. They don't have any contested spots as of this time, and so there won't really be much or anything to do. There still is a write-in deadline for tomorrow, so if a write-in candidate signs up, then we may potentially have to do so. But what it is essentially is we have staff at all their locations. They pay us for everything that we spend. The actual expenses that the city incurs plus 10% as an administrative fee. So if we do have to rent machines, hire election clerks, things of that nature, they pay for all that plus 10% for the city staff time that's taken up. Like I said, this is an agreement that was entered into last year. I don't believe, Monica, they didn't have an election last year either, so it didn't end up costing the city any time or anything. And it appears to be headed on that course
And
this
these
year.
elections are when?
November 8th, the same day.
November the 8th.
Yes,
And where are the locations gonna be at?
Monica,
They would be the same location.
as the county, but the actual locations, because the school district is such a large area, they would have, I think they've got 7 total locations. And so it would potentially be, if they had write-ins for every one of those, we would have to man and have machines at all 7 of those. But again, they would pay for it all. We would just be the administrative oversight responsible for recruiting election judges, renting.
And what is to say that we have to have the election in November instead of bringing it back to May and having it here at the city hall like we've always had it?
That was done under the election code when what they call the MOVE Act was implemented. And I believe there's an agenda item later where somebody can speak on that's researched that a little more and has more experience with that. But from looking at the resolutions that were passed by the city and everything in compliance with that MOVE Act, that's why we have our elections in November right now.
But if you want to move it back to May, you could look into that.
That would be, an attorney could look into that.
Okay. But for right now, we still have to vote on this, even though we still have, oh wait.
Yes.
Any other question? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, do we have to vote on this already, or
Yes.
can we get the answer back that we can move the election?
No,
to
no,
May?
that has nothing to do with it. Right now, we need to vote on this one, the joint election agreement with the Floresville Independent School District.
But if theirs has to be on November, and we want to do it in May, it would be a different.
We don't, Chris says we don't have the answer to that right now.
Right, and with the election being 76 days out or something, I couldn't tell you whether or not whatever you're desiring could be accomplished in that time.
I know, but if we make a decision right now to do it with the school, we would have to agree to have the election in November.
I can make a change that, in this contract that says, if for some reason that the election date for the city is moved to the May general election date, that this contract becomes null and void. I can include that language in there.
Yes,
And if we can adopt it with that amended language.
yes, that would be good, because I've had a lot of feedback from a lot of individuals that they want to go back to where we're all voting at the same place.
Excuse me, Mr. Miller, you'll get your turn when we have time for citizens' comments. Is that okay? It's not the time. Yes, sir.
If you could include that in your language, that would be,
Yeah, I can make that amendment if approved by the council before it goes back to the school district to vote on. They have not, because they only meet once a month, so they have not had this to take a vote on yet.
thank you.
Okay. Hey, council, any other questions? All right, let me have a motion.
I move to take no action on item 4A.
I have a motion to take no action on 4A. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. We need citizens' comments on no action.
Yeah, before a vote.
Okay, Mr. Miller?
Councilman, I understand that the council's concerned to consider moving the city's election to May. This agreement is about the school's election, and this council has no authority over when the school holds their election. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments?
And I will say that would be, if the election date was moved, that's why this would be rendered null, because they would still have to have theirs in November.
I understand that, because joint election agreement, as far as when the school board has their election, is not a decision of this council.
Correct. The school board will have their election November 8th.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay. No other comments?
Mr. Jimenez, I don't think you were talking about the school election, I think you were talking about the city election, is that correct?
Yes, city election only. I understand that we're a city, not the school.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to take no action. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed?
5-0, Mayor.
All right, 5-0, motion carries, take no action. Item B, CNA to approve a 3-year annexation plan, 2019. Mr. Chris Stewart? Or Mrs. Turner?
I have to raise Ms. Turner up to the podium.
This is Chris Stewart, our consultant, and I just wanted to make sure that the new council members get introduced to him, and the other existing council members know that he's underneath that beard somewhere. It looks a little different. Okay, and so he's going to present to you our annexation plan for 2019. He has some large maps, I believe are in your location, and this is what we carried on before, it was presented to you before. We wanted to have you an opportunity to look at it again, so that we can look at this area for 2019. And I'm going to turn this map around so the public can see.
Thank you, Ms. Turner. Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. So we started earlier in the year with discussions with staff, your other engineering consultants, and we looked at areas immediately adjacent to the city limits, which we thought would be the next areas we might want to consider annexing. We looked at that with respect to the availability of utilities, the types of uses that were going on there, and we also referenced back to our future land use plan that we had done several years ago, where we established some priority areas for the annexation. So we kind of rounded out that process through the Planning and Zoning Commission at the beginning of the year. Since then, we've had an opportunity with your surveying consultant to really pin down and tighten up what the corporate boundaries are for the city. So we really have a good handle now on what our city limits actually are. And we can go ahead with good confidence there. What I've recommended here is a set of areas, and you'll see them on the colored map. It's the same map that the public is looking at here. These areas would be the areas that I think, in my opinion, are the areas you would want to annex within the next 3 years. So we're talking about a 3-year timeline, and the reason we're talking about that is because that's the timeline that the legislature has given cities to accomplish annexation in the way that the legislature prefers that cities do that. They give you, they say, you pick a date, set what areas you're going to go, and then you have a 3-year timeline, which is here in the last page of your packet. That's how that 3-year timeline works. And at the end of that 3-year timeline, once you've done all the little things along the way, you can successfully complete your annexations. But that's the process that the statute lays out, and so that's what we're following. We describe in here what the areas are and what we believe are the inventory. We're going to have a process in this timeline in which we conduct an inventory, a detailed inventory that your engineering consultants are going to assist with. There will be other options along the way to, if you wanted to remove an area from this plan, that you could do so. That would be an option. Once you set it though, we can't be adding to it later on, because otherwise then we got to start that 3-year timeline all over. But it's all about that timeline, and what we're, I think what I'm asking of the council tonight is that we simply set this timeline in motion, where we have the time to go through the processes that we need to in terms of the inventory and establishing the service plan for those areas.
Okay, what's the timeline
Yes, sir.
on the service? You know, once you get annexed, for the city to provide all services to that?
So you have 3 years from the time of,
From day one to?
from day one, and unless it's stipulated in the service plan that it's not going to be that way.
So we got 3 years to prepare.
3 years to prepare, and then another 3 years to provide, if that's what makes sense.
Is that total 6 or just 3?
From today, if y'all started it today, it would be 6 years.
Okay.
So you have time to plan, you have time to budget, you have time to design and install.
And these areas to the north, you say you went north? In those service areas, we would coexist with another provider.
Correct. You would
In
coexist.
water, but in sewer,
In
or are those all septic systems, or would they qualify for a septic area?
Some of them are within, some of that area, and I have it broken out into the different N1, N2, and 3 based on kind of what those service areas are. If that sewer is available within 500 feet, I believe it is, then that connection would have to be made to the sewer. But if there is an existing septic system that's in place, then that septic system under the service plan would be able to stay in place until it failed beyond 50% of its repair costs. So in terms of water, some of the areas, especially the north, are within the Oak Hills service area. So that doesn't change. We're not taking over their territory.
Would we, in essence, be buying their water, or they still be the provider?
They would still be the provider. There's no, unless we wanted to work something out independent of the annexation plan with them, you're free to do that through another interlocal agreement, but by the annexation plan, you're not taking over their service area. There's no.
But when you're commingling like that, you know, say you're a newcomer and you have Oak Hills water and you think that the city's providing your service.
That, I'm sure that happens, but usually the first bills kind of set that straight.
But is it gonna be mandatory that if we run our sewer lines, that they hook onto ours?
If the sewer is within 500 feet, then yeah, it would be mandatory that they connect. And I'm quoting, I may be misremembering is it 500 feet or 750 feet? I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, so
But
in other words,
there's a set
if
distance.
they have they're gonna have to hook up to our sewer, so that way, because if not, we're gonna have sewer lines being run over there.
Right.
That are costly,
Right.
that we're not gonna be getting any funds back.
That would have to happen. As the sewer becomes available, then they'll have to connect.
Unless there's a septic tank that doesn't.
Unless there's an
50%
existing,
repair.
if there's an
Is that what you
existing,
said?
yes ma'am,
Thank
if there's
you.
an existing one.
So the area that we're talking about is that lime green by the Chevrolet?
Yeah.
What is the population in these areas?
I don't have that information with me. It wasn't a significant population because the areas are mostly larger tracts. I don't have that information with me. I think I unfortunately left it.
That's gonna be more commercial area.
It tends to be along the 181 corridor. It tends to be more commercial, certainly in the blue area where we have, for example, McDonald's and the credit union, which are currently sitting outside the city limits. So, but in the yellow area, there are still some rural residential areas that are slowly converting to commercial uses.
Okay, so tonight we approve, but you're saying that at any time we can go back and,
You can go back and take something out. You can go through a process to remove something.
You just can't add, you can always reduce the amount that you're annexing, but you just can't add on unless you want to restart the clock. And I think the only residential area that's being added is out to Redbird Lane.
Yeah.
S1. 181 South out there. The rest of it is scattered houses and things of that nature.
do we have any estimates of potential tax base?
I did run some numbers initially, and
I think you can probably pull them.
we'd have to pull them from the last meetings. I think I pulled that second meeting.
Unless somebody has it in their email. Henrietta, can we grab that from?
No, I have it on my.
Where's Henrietta?
I may be able to find it here in my email. I can look.
I was looking over there for it.
What are your thoughts, Henrietta?
Well, I think we need to be able to, one of the things we did when we did with phase one, one of the things that happened when we did phase one was, there was a lot of things in the newspaper about us jumping and why did we make all the gaps and things such as that. So this is phase two. In phase one, we did those large 5 homeowners, landowners that did it so that we can include Richardson's, and it took a lot of the things. Now this is focusing on 181. Again, I need to go get the McDonald's. They're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we get no sales tax from that. So we need to be able to fill that in. In reference to, if I could speak for 1 second, our CBS, they receive Oak Hills water. McCoy's gets Oak Hills water. And so it's just a matter of a water system, and so it's not necessarily a city, it's a water thing, and so we sell water in other areas, but that will continue to be that. We need to be able to start this process, have our public hearings, and we have 3 years to start this process. Because there's a lot of commercial pockets that we have now that are not in our city. County has looked at it when we looked at our first public hearing, our first annexation, and they attended some of our meetings, which was exciting. But they also strongly recommended that we did some things all the way to the river and definitely filling along 181. And actually that ETJ, yes, subdivision would be part of it. So when we counted up, I had about 40 homes that would be new homes or new buildings that would be a part of this process. Most of it is vacant. Agriculture will still stay agriculture, and we offered them the same agreement that we did with the others, that if they went commercial, they'd have to automatically annex in. So we're hoping that this process will get started, and I would strongly recommend that we do that. It does line up with our land use agreement that Mr. Smith,
Don't recognize me.
no, I don't, that Mr. Stewart did before.
When we're running our amenities to everyone, are they gonna have a choice of taking what water they wanna use? If they wanna use city water or Oak
No,
Hills
sir.
water?
They have what we call a CCN, which is where our area, our territory, and where their territory is, it overlaps. So whoever's supplying them water now will continue to supply them water. So
But
no,
if they want to choose to change, can they?
No.
No.
no, it's a territorial kind
Okay.
of,
The state carves up for water districts
Okay.
essentially.
yes,
That's,
it's a territorial kind of thing, we can't.
they're just questions that people are gonna be asking.
I
you
think
know,
they're
so-
really good questions, and so that we want you to feel comfortable and to start the process, we can add all those questions.
I don't
Now,
want to be giving wrong information.
three years gives, we can do 10% of our size for the next 3 years, it's just a 3-year process. So like I said, when we say this is our territory, then we can come back and say, you wanna take some things out, you can take it out. Again, but you can't add anything in if you don't add this process, once you start this process.
When we talked about this a few months ago, we tabled it because we didn't know what the cost of services.
Now, there's a service agreement that you have to come up with, which is part of the plan. And our engineers can start doing that. That would be Mr. Heimer. Would talk about the service price. So what we say is what we can provide to people. And so what our plans are, we have to tell them, are we planning to take it out that far? Are we planning on having our sewer lines go out to Richardson's, for example? The answer could be yes, the answer could be no. But we would have to. If the services are not there, we don't have to go there if they're already having some of those services provided to them.
Would this be the right time, once we pass this, to start discussing impact fees?
Yes, it would be.
Another thing, how long are they looking at for our sewer plant to be completed?
It's
I'm just
gonna-
saying, because if we, right now we can't handle at our sewer plant, you know, this annexation.
Your sewer plant, the one that we're hoping to start and break ground on very soon, is designed to take on this to year, whatever it is, 40 years from now.
Yes,
it's
no, I
designed to
understand
take
that,
it on.
but right now, as we speak, we can't handle that. But how long is that process gonna take?
It takes 2 years to do that plant.
Okay.
This process is to not, they don't even become ours
Yeah,
until
so it's-
2019.
Yeah, no, I understand, I just
Yes.
trying to see
Yes, sir, we'll be a
what the gap
whole,
is.
that plan will be a whole year old before they become a part of the city. He did find the email that he sent me that has some numbers for you, Councilman.
So, the ad valorem base of the property, basically your property tax base would be about $15.6 million in valuation, which would produce about $45,000 in annual revenue from property tax. And that's just assuming that the properties stay at their current valuation. In 3 years, they may develop, so that could go up. And then in terms of sales and use tax receipts, I estimated between $270,000 and $525,000 a year in sales tax receipts. So combining those together, we look at somewhere between $300,000 and $570,000 annually in tax receipts from both the property tax and the sales tax.
Is that what you're gonna do, put a lot of sewer lines and water?
No, that's not my words.
Any other questions, council?
Not for me.
All right, may I have a motion?
I so move to approve the 3-year annexation plan, 2019.
May I have a second? We have a motion and a second. Do we have citizens' comments? Yes. For the record, please identify yourself.
Scott Mason, born and bred in Floresville.
Thank you.
He mentioned impact fees, and I understand they're very common. I've had to work with them in doing real estate development stuff. And I can tell you right now, there's businesses in Bernie, or not businesses, but investors in Bernie, that are just trying to get out from under their investments because of impact studies and impact fees. And it creates red tape that people just give up. It costs too much and you don't know if you're going to get through them. Because it starts out a little bitty deal, and then every year it kind of just gets a little bigger. And pretty soon, I can tell you that the last big subdivision I was on in Bexar County, we spent over $500,000 on engineering, trying to get through all that stuff. And it's not, it becomes prohibitive. We were already stuck in the deal, so we had to see it through, but we would have jumped ship otherwise.
Thank you.
Anyway, just
Thank you, Mr. Gleason. Anyone else? Any other comments? All right, council, let's take a vote. All those in favor of approving the 3-year annexation plan for 2019? All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed?
5-0, Mayor.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. On to item C, CNA to the diverse hotel motel tax fund, $750 to the Wilson County Elite. Ballers. How do you pronounce that, Mr. Gonzalez?
Just like Ballers, B-A-L-L-E-R-S, but with a Z.
Ballers, okay, thank you.
Peloteros. Anyway, I'm Fred Gonzalez, chairperson for the Convention, Tourist and Visitors Advisory Board. What you see before you is a request from the Wilson County Elite Ballers, which is a youth sports organization, requesting funds from our hotel motel tax. Request was to help fund a 23rd July youth camp, football camp, for school children ranging from grades 2 through 12. An added attraction was for attraction and inspiration, I might say, was the presence of invited professional athletes. Because this is the first annual event, their participation was rather low. It was 25 to 30 participants, with about 300 people altogether, including family members and spectators. The use of hotel motel rooms was 10. And of course, they did some shopping and dining in Floresville. Their request was $1,000 to $1,500 grant. After about 30 minutes of executive session deliberations, the board agreed to: 1, request met the criteria for funding, and number 2, using a formula developed by Tony Rivera for this purpose, the board agreed to fund at the lower end of scale because of the limited numbers involved. Thus, we recommend a grant of $750. I may say at this point, this is again, as I indicated, the first of a planned yearly event, and so we encourage them to continue. Their plan is to do this for other sports too. Tony gave them some pointers and offered to help them with the promotion for following years. Now, if you need any more information specific, Mr. Ben Reed is here to answer questions.
Council, do you all have questions of Mr. Reed?
Or of me.
Or
I'm
Mr.
okay.
Gonzalez? Okay.
I understand most of the players were Texas Longhorns.
Yeah, they were. Just for the record,
Mr.
Quan
Reed,
Crosby.
would you mind stepping up here so we can all see
Yeah,
you?
that's fine.
Because there's a,
He makes me look so small. Don't get him up here, please.
For the record, my name's Ben Reed from Floresville.
I'm not going to hold it against you just because they're all Longhorns.
Nah, that's okay. We had Quan Crosby. He played for the Angels for about 4 years. He went back to the Longhorns and then playing in the NFL. Started out in Denver, Indianapolis Colts, and then with the Cincinnati Bengals. We also brought in Aaron Ross from the New York Giants. So I'm a Cowboys fan, don't hold that against me. He finished his career with the Ravens and the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was a 2-time Super Bowl champion, and he won the national title with the Longhorns. So we brought him in, and just to make a correction, we had about 75 athletes come to the camp. Our goal is 200, so this is a planned annual event. We partnered with BAM PR and Marketing to hold these events annually, and then move into the realm of having some basketball camps for our youth.
Where y'all having y'all event?
We had it at the city park. So
so the July camp is where?
at the city park.
City Park?
Yeah, there's a little football field in there. The
Oh,
Wildcats,
okay.
the boys Wildcats, they were part of the sponsorship. They used all their equipment, so they came in.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Council? All right, may I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, may I have a second? We have a motion and a second to disperse hotel motel tax funds for $750 to the Wilson County Elite Ballers. All right, may I have citizens' comments, please? No comments? All right, may I have a vote? All in favor?
Thank you very much.
Opposed? 5-0, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Don't leave because you're on the next one.
Right here.
The next one is to, I hope I can pronounce all your words now. CNA to approve amending the Floresville Convention Tourism Visitors Advisory Board bylaws to effect a request from the Floresville Independent School District to remove them as member of the board. Okay?
Okay, we currently have 7 members on our board, 2 appointed by the city, Marisa Jimenez and myself, 1 appointed by FEDC, Tommy Baker, 1 appointed by the county, Felipe Salazar, 1 appointed by the Chamber of Commerce, Crystal Enders, 1 appointed by the hospital district, and that is vacant, and 1 appointed by the school district, which is also vacant. The school district recently, and we've been in contact with them over a year and a half, I guess, contacted us, sent us a letter requesting that we remove their membership. They didn't mind being on there, but they didn't see any real particular advantage to being on our board. So I'm asking you folks to approve my request to remove them from the board, which will leave 6. And I might say at this point, eventually we're going to come forward or before you on the hospital also. They've never had a member. We tried a couple of times. They named somebody and they backed out. So we'll eventually be contacting them and hopefully we'll end up also removing them. But for right now, it's only the school district at their request.
I so move.
No one has questions? Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Citizens' comments? None? All in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
All right, 5.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. Motion carries. Go on to the next one. CNA to appoint members to the Park Advisory Board. Mr. Yen, Councilman Yen.
This is at the request of from our joint meeting with the FEDC, where one of the stipulations was where we'd come up with an advisory board, also include members from the council, the FEDC, and I think they said members of the community, to go over the Heartland Park plan. I think Mr. Tejada, I reached out to a couple people on the Floresville Little League, also the Floresville Wildcats, and got a good response from them. I think Mr. Tejada reached out to some people also, and I think you have a list.
Yeah, I'd like to place some names into nomination, and since we don't have a